Man, this is Deion Dawkins, man, and you're listening to The Scoop on owlscoop.com. You already know.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Scoop, owlscoop.com's podcast, Season 9, Episode 16. I'm John DeCarlo, joined today by Kyle Gauss, Declan Landis, Johnny Zawizlak. So much to go over today. It's been a very eventful week in Temple sports. Of course, Temple landed a triple overtime win over LaSalle last night at the Liacouras Center. The Owls will be playing for the inaugural Big Five Classic Championship against St. Joe's Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. at the Wells Fargo Center. Things not as cheery and upbeat on the football front. EJ Warner has hit the transfer portal. We'll have a lot of football to discuss a little bit later in the show as well, answering all your mailbag questions. Of course, we'll review everybody's Thanksgivings, any last minute food takes you guys have, anything else you want to put on the agenda, but a lot of cool stuff to get to. The Scoop brought to you once again by Greenspan and Greenspan Injury Lawyers. If you've been injured while on the road or the highway and the crash was somebody else's fault, the insurance company is not going to be on your side. You need us, Temple Law grads, who will fight hard to get the compensation that you deserve. We only get paid if we win. So in Pennsylvania or New York, call us today at 215-261-7359. That's 215-261-7359. And you can find them on the web at greenspans-law.com. That's greenspans-law.com. Should also mention that a little bit later on in the show, we are going to be talking to a good friend of mine, Jeff Neiburg from the Philadelphia Inquirer. He covered last night's St. Joe's Villanova game, and he'll give us a little bit of a closer look at the Hawks that this team that Temple's going to be facing Saturday night. So we'll look forward to talking to him as well. What's going on, guys? I'm so tired. I'm so sleepy.
Yeah, that was a long game. That was a very long game. It was a fun game, though.
Kyle's already he's just already like.
The game was over at like 10:15.
No,
like,
was it?
Yeah, it was.
There's no way.
Well, we didn't leave the building till like 12:30.
Well, that's because you're slow and you're still learning your craft.
That's not us.
But the game, I think the game literally ended 10:15 or 10:30. It was a 7 o'clock tip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good.
Yeah.
Good. My mom almost screwed up the deviled eggs. She, I don't know if you know how to make deviled eggs, but you have to shock the eggs and you can put them in the freezer. And she forgot to take them out of the freezer, so she froze all the eggs.
Oh no!
So she had to make them kind of like impromptu. Fortunately, we survived.
Were you pouting about these?
I would have been very upset if there weren't deviled eggs. Deviled eggs, they only have like a 5-year window, a 5-week window, not 5 years, 5-week window where like it's acceptable to eat like 6 deviled eggs, and we're in that window. We're in deviled egg season.
What is the window from like May to November?
He said
Is that weeks?
If you're saying you're talking about like the
Are you smelling
frame.
gas? Is there a
No,
leak
I'm
in your
not
office?
smelling gas. I thought you were talking about like a seasonal time to eat deviled eggs.
Correct, I am. I'm saying from like Thanksgiving through Christmas, you can eat deviled eggs.
Well,
Other than that, it's like a once in a blue moon thing.
Well, what about like I've always had.
I'll give you
like,
New Year's.
What about like
I
in the
can't
summer?
either, so.
Like you've never had deviled eggs? At,
No,
like,
I
a
have,
cookout or
but
something
those are
that?
like a one-off. Like you're like, okay, maybe I'll get deviled eggs for the table. Like let's get a thing of this, like you get a little appetizer. But like
Wait,
I probably ate 9 deviled eggs on Thanksgiving.
That's valid.
Delicious.
9 deviled eggs on
Like
Thanksgiving.
the half, say, because you get like a half an egg. So
And
like
then-
4.5 total eggs.
And then turkey after that.
Yeah, John. What does that have to do with anything?
How are you feeling later on?
Fine. I do not have the GI tract that you do. Yours
I was
is
gonna
like
say John can't process that people can eat.
yours is like
foods
when they
that.
find somebody that's been like on a raft in the ocean. They're like, we can't feed him too quickly. His stomach might explode. Like that's you every day.
It's-
For me, I can eat 4.5 eggs in the span of however many hours and I'm fine.
Rymir stopped over on Thanksgiving, as he did at Johnny's house.
Yes.
And after a while, Chelsea just enjoyed, telling embarrassing stories about me. And then Rymir basically like just staring into my soul and saying, John, what was your thought process there?
That was
When you
hilarious.
ate this or did
I was a
that?
big
So-
fan of that.
Yeah, poor decisions. The John DeCarlo story.
Declan, Johnny, Thanksgiving, good.
Yeah, it was good. I had my dad's side of the family over, and then Ramir came towards the end, and it was great to have his presence. And then my family threw a dance party.
Yeah, I
for
heard
him.
that you guys did the chicken dance.
Well, I didn't do the chicken dance. My dad and my little cousins did the chicken dance.
Mm.
So
Do you think Ramir was comparing your two Thanksgivings?
Oh yeah,
yes, and he had said
did.
that
We talked about that
Yes.
Friday morning. The guys called me on the way to the game.
he had said that because my house had green bean casserole, that one he favored the food by a tiny bit.
I'm not a big green bean casserole guy, but I see
We
it. I see these.
specifically- we
Also,
specifically
John
told my mom.
DeCarlo, please speak into the microphone. Your volume's really low.
I am speaking into the mic.
Johnny Zwizlak, great. He's projecting, coming across
you.
great.
Is Johnny number one in the Outscoop Power Rankings right now because of this?
No, have you seen the power rankings? By default, I am number one.
So Johnny's number 2 right now.
1A,
better.
1B.
On this podcast, he is right now. Well, Declan fixed it though, so that gives him points and takes away from other people.
Oh, well,
Producer magic right there. I don't want to be that guy, but
No, we specifically told my mom, normally love your green bean casserole, but just she focused on something else this year. She made lasagna. So Ramir did like the lasagna.
yeah, he mentioned that was a high point of yours.
We also had lasagna. My brother-in-law's wife is Italian, so we had lasagna. Not great for the actual Thanksgiving, but the next day to break up the leftovers from just being like turkey and all that, lasagna hits. Like that's a good one.
Yeah. Famous number 16s, guys.
Oh, shoot.
Joe Montana.
Yep.
Bobby Clark.
Mm.
You were 16, right?
He did.
I think so.
I'm just type.
Kyle's definitely, definitely
type.
looking right now.
Tyler Lockett as well.
Oh
Ugh.
yes.
Ugh. Vinny Testaverde.
Vinny Testaverde. I thought Vinny Testaverde wore number 14.
I'm looking at a photo of him wearing 16, John.
Hmm.
On the same
Montana.
site that we all go on.
Montana was going to be mine.
Sorry,
He
Brian.
wore 14 with the Bucks. He was 16 with the Jets, Cowboys, Titans. Oh, sorry, just Cowboys, Panthers.
I'm tapped out without
That's all I
actually
got.
looking. I always think of Joe Montana.
Notre
This is
Dame
good.
legend.
What
Ooh,
was your favorite class? No,
Relax.
one of the first people to like abandon the Oakland A's wore this when he was with the Oakland A's.
abandon the Oakland
His
A's?
brother later played with the Phillies.
Oh, Giambi.
Giambi wore 16 with the A's, but then 25 with the Yankees.
Any other ones you could quiz us on?
Yeah, that's what I do. That's what I'm doing. Going through these people. A lot of grainy photos. Don't recognize some of these people.
Then I'm screwed.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Tall wing player for the Chris Webber Kings.
Stojakovic?
Yes, Peja.
Okay.
It's good. Let's
There
keep
we go.
going.
Hey,
Nice.
Good quiz, guys.
Yeah.
Good quiz. Good quiz.
Oh, last one. Married a future morning show host.
Married a future morning show host.
Regis and
Oh, that's who I was thinking, but I can't think of who it is.
come on, John.
Oh, Frank Gifford. Frank
Yes.
Gifford. There we go. The late great Frank Gifford. All right, good
Good stuff.
Good
Good
quiz,
stuff, guys.
Good quiz. Good start.
Great segment.
Let's talk about this triple overtime game that Temple played last night. 8 ties, 15 lead changes, 10 players fouled out, 5 on each team. And at the end of the night, Temple's closing out this game with Quante Berry, Deuce Roberts, Taj Sweet, Shane Dezzoni, and Steve Settle on the floor, but they got it done. Temple gave away an 8-point lead inside the last 2 minutes of regulation. They missed 27 three-pointers last night, 15 free throws. This was Temple's first triple overtime game since 1990 when they beat UMass. And they won despite giving up a Big 5 single-game scoring record of 41 points to Jameer Brickus, who was just fun to watch last night. It was fantastic for LaSalle. Steve Settle, one of the heroes of the night, he had a double-double with 19 points and career-high 16 rebounds. Of course, at the game tying 3 in the first overtime to send it into a second overtime. Kyle, as always, did not disappoint. Dropped some stat gems last night. Steve
Who else
Settle,
you know out here dropping Temple minute stats? Nobody. Nobody.
I just imagine you squaring off against somebody in like a back alley somewhere. Like, who are you?
And they're like, well, the last time Temple had 100 points. I'm like, yeah, it's easy shit. That's kindergarten stuff.
Why don't you test me this time?
Steve Settle, first player in Temple, the first Temple player to play 50 minutes since both Lavoy Allen and Braleer Jefferson had to play, as Kyle pointed out, every minute of Temple's double overtime loss to Kawhi Leonard's San Diego State team in the 2011
Tucson,
NCAA
Arizona.
tournament. What's that?
In Tucson, Arizona.
Yes, we were there. We were there covering that game.
Make your own taco bowl was the pregame media meal.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Delicious.
Yeah, that was a very creative, probably one of the better media meals I've had.
Yeah,
I
make
forgot
your own
about
taco
that.
bowl. I remember
Yeah,
they had
Kyle-
it like in like an auditorium. There's like, here you go. Like, make your own taco. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
We'll do.
Tortilla chips here, bottomless tortilla chips. Kyle, this was my favorite poll of yours from the night. Temple's 96 field goal attempts were the most in program history, the most in Division I basketball since McNeese had 96 against Houston Christian back on March 5th, 2022, and none other than Sam Hoffman started both of those games. So I
Wild.
thoroughly enjoyed that.
The well-traveled man.
Yes. Understand that they ran out of hot dog buns on Dollar Dog Night. People seemed a little upset about that on Twitter. We got to watch a game with Claire Smith and Karen Turner. That was very lovely.
Yeah, that was probably made it the best part.
Want to shout out Karen Turner, one
Yeah.
of the truly, truly awesome educators here at Temple. We're going to be celebrating her upcoming retirement next week. Love her to pieces. Love Claire as
Absolutely.
well. So they were able to sit with us on press row. But I mean, other than the fact that I'm absolutely loving the Big Five Classic chaos, and we'll talk to Jeff Neiburg about this. I mean, it's insane. We've got Villanova and Drexel playing in the fifth place game on Saturday. You have last night's craziness. St. Joe's is finally starting to hit their stride. But what do you guys take out of last night's game? Again, it's November basketball, but I think there are, beyond just the win and the excitement of the win, a couple of big takeaways from last night. But Kyle, I'll start with you. I mean, what do you take from? You look like you're looking around like there's a fire alarm going off in your house.
So I
or
have
something
4
like that.
monitors, and sometimes you're up in the top, and sometimes you're not in the top. So I literally was looking around to see where you were as I was doing something else. Yeah. To be honest, I think I was pretty vocal about the Big Five Classic was a stupid idea when it got announced initially, because like, why are you taking away these opportunities? The first rendition of it has not disappointed. I think it's chaotic. I think it was always going to be a game where Fran Dunphy was going to be able to score points, because that's what Fran Dunphy teams do. Like, Fran Dunphy can coach offense as good as anybody in this nation. I don't think I ever saw Jameer Brickus dropping 41 points in a Division I game happening, but here we are. But from a Temple perspective, I think the resiliency and the depth of the team kind of stood out. I saw people like the easy low hanging quote is like, this team loses that game last year. And I'm not sure if that's the case, because I don't know if they would have gone to 3 overtimes against LaSalle last year. Mm-hmm. But I don't think Temple had the depth last year to withstand 5 guys fouling out and still be competitive in a cross city rivalry. So I think it was refreshing to see guys like, but yeah, I think people have been waiting for this game for Quante Berry, right? Where like Quante Berry is all of a sudden out there and he looks like he can run the offense and he can bring the ball up and he can shoot some big time threes and kind of just show why he was a Big East caliber recruit. So I saw some negativity on Twitter on this after this game, to be honest. Like, oh, they won this game in spite of themselves. They had so many opportunities to lose and they didn't. And they didn't is my takeaway. I think it's the type of win that if they had lost this game, this would have been like a deflating, demoralizing loss. Instead, it's a like bounce back win that you're like, okay, let's see if they can get some momentum going to St. Joe's.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And you mentioned Quante Berry, but my biggest takeaway was Steve Settle. I mean, we had talked, in the preseason about, could Steve Settle be a guy that stretches the floor and is a big factor on offense? And I think, I don't remember if it was last week or the week before, but I said now with Jaleel White out, Steve Settle kind of has to fill that role of getting buckets when Hyseer Miller can't. And I felt like last night was the first night he really showed that he could do that in Cherry and White. Like that felt like the breakout game we were looking for. And, when he got the ball on the wing in that first overtime and hit that shot, it seemed like there was a level of confidence we hadn't seen. And then he hit that Euro step in the third overtime and he was flexing and he showed a lot of energy. Like that felt like the first time we had seen that all year. So I don't know if that's a big, indication of where his confidence level might be at right now, but I think that was maybe just as big for that team last night as the win was getting him in a place where he's confident with the ball in his hands on the offensive side. You know, you were always going to get that defense with his, you know, his length and his ability to close out on the perimeter as well. But now that he can maybe be that viable option we've been looking for out of this team, you know, alongside the guys that had shown up, I think that was a key takeaway as well.
I also like the fact that Adam Fisher put him on Jameer Brickus a little bit later on in
Yeah.
the game. Like basically almost kind of saying like right now we don't have anybody who's quick enough to stay in front of him, but we have somebody with the wingspan to distract them a little bit. I think Steve's just kind of almost more so maybe like rediscovering a little bit of confidence. I mean, this is a guy that scored, 11 first half points against Kansas in the NCAA tournament last year. Now, eventually Kansas pulled away in that game and beat Howard pretty handily, but yeah, certainly a big game from him last night. And that play to set up that game tying 3 in the first overtime was really well done. Getting the ball out to Zion Stanford, a little dribble handoff to him, and then he hits that shot. Johnny, what'd you take away from last night?
No, I think it's a combination of everything that you guys said, but I also think it's just like the resilience and the belief that this team has in each other and Adam too. I feel like that's something you didn't really see last year under Aaron. I mean, I know we know that things weren't great in that locker room, and I feel like now it's just the complete opposite, where they all believe that while not everyone's going to play every night, that they all have the ability to pick each other up if someone's not playing well. And I also think just picking someone out. I thought Jordan Riley was a guy that looked a lot better last night. While he fouled out relatively early in that game, he looked really good. And there have been times he's looked lost this season. I feel like he looked a lot better and a lot more confident playing last night before he fouled out.
Yeah, the Quante Barry storyline I think is really important because he missed time with a wrist injury in the offseason, and then for him to come in this game and give you what he did, 13 points in 21 minutes, did not turn the ball over a lot, looks like he can get to the rim as quickly as anybody on the team right now. And I'll be interested to see if he gets more minutes moving forward, because I mean, again, like Hysier Miller is playing his butt off right now, but 8 of 26 from the floor last night, 0 for 7 from 3. To be fair, nobody really shot well on this team from 3 last night. 7 of 34 from 3, 31 of 46 from the line. Like Adam Fisher said, if they had just hit a few free throws, they're not going to triple overtime last night. They blew the 8-point lead, again, inside the last 2 minutes of the game. But one game, it's a short sample size, but you also have to kind of tip your cap to him. He had the open look against Ole Miss last week. Hysier drove in, couldn't really, I was saying, we were texting back and forth that day and saying, yeah, I would have, easy for me to play Monday morning quarterback. I would have loved to see him pull back, maybe try to hit like a pull-up jumper there. He couldn't go in against a 7'4" center, but dishes the ball out to Quante Barry, has a wide open look from the corner, doesn't knock it down, comes back in this game and really helped close the game. I mean, like you could argue that they don't win the game without him last night, with so many players off the floor. And kind of a big moment for Taj Tweet too. Again, his numbers don't jump out at you, but 4 points, 2 rebounds, and a big block in 8 minutes. Again, they're going to need more from him now that Jaleel White is out. Again, I keep hearing this is a multiple game thing for Jaleel White. I asked Adam Fisher about him last night, and he was sort of just like very protective of that information. I said, do you have an updated timeline on Jaleel? He said, I don't. I said, is it a hand thing, a finger thing? And I think he said yes to both. But at the end of the day, you're missing a 6'7", 210-pound guard who can guard 5 positions on the floor, was averaging 13 points, 8 rebounds a game, and the renewed confidence he was playing with. So you're losing a rebounder there. But again, all the more reason why it was more important to see what you saw from Steve Settle last night. But
to kind of echo your point, Hysier Miller currently averaging 10 3-pointers a game would be the most in Temple history, which I'm not trying to undermine Hysier Miller's shooting ability, but I don't think he should be attempting 10 3-pointers a game at this point in his career.
No,
but last night, I mean, that was just became that type of game. I mean, this is a Temple team that up to this point had been making its free throws. All of a sudden, they weren't making their free throws. So, like, I just think you walk away from that win just being like, well, they won. Like, they did a lot of things weird. They won in ways that you wouldn't think they were going to win, but you go, okay, they won. They're 4-2, and they have a chance to win the Big Five. And I think if they win the Big Five, they would retake the all-time titles from Nova, I believe. So there you go.
Big Five historian Kyle Gauss.
Big Five guy.
With that.
Just historian. Just
Also
full
could, be,
Yeah.
also could be making that up. So let's find out.
well, you know.
All right, so let's look ahead to Saturday's Big Five Classic championship game where Temple is going to be facing St. Joe's. The tentative tip-off time there at the Wells Fargo Center, 7:30 p.m. The Hawks beat 18th ranked Villanova last night behind 24 points from former Temple recruiting target Eric Reynolds, and then 15 from Lynn Greer III, of course, the son of Temple's current staff member, Lynn Greer, who's not on the bench with the guys all the time, but is helping with fundraising the NIL space there. They shot 14 of 27 from three-point range last night. The Hawks did. Xavier Brown had 16 points off the bench, shot 4 or 5 from three. They've got some size in Rasheer Fleming, the 6'9", 230-pound sophomore forward out of Camden. He had 12 points, 11 rebounds last night. That snapped an 11-game losing streak to Villanova, and they're doing this without Christ Essendoko, their 7-foot center who was highly recruited and decommitted from Providence in 2022. He's been battling this toe injury. He had 9 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 assists in the game against Kentucky that they almost won. And then he played 25 minutes in their win over Sacred Heart Sunday, but he didn't play last night. It's the same toe injury, again, that kept him out of their opener. He was wearing a boot on his left leg last night, per Jeff Neiburg of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Speaking of Jeff Neiburg from the Philadelphia Inquirer, Jeff has been kind enough to join us on Zoom right now. What's up, buddy? How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing fantastic. I appreciate the intro.
And it is your dog Frankie's birthday today, correct?
It is. We love doggy birthdays here. I celebrated her birthday by taking her to the vet and getting her both an allergy shot and a Bordetella vaccine. Keep those dogs vaxxed, baby. She hates me right now today, but we're going to go to the dog park in a little bit. And one of our dog park friends has promised to bring her a treat. So it'll be a good birthday after all.
I swear to God, I thought you were going to say you celebrated by getting her spayed. Like
No,
I honestly thought the way
fifth birthday. No,
the way you were like cadencing, it was like, and we celebrated by having her spayed.
I like to keep you on your toes.
That's coming up for us in March with Cece. Jeff got the chance to meet recently.
She loved me.
And Jeff, you said season 9, episode 16. A lot of synergy here. Also, your birthday.
My birth date is 9/16. I will not reveal it's not polite to ask a man his birthday. So how old he is.
You guys can all go get lost with this stuff. I'm clearly the oldest person on this podcast. You're all young. I don't want to hear any of that.
I'm actually
30?
excited to go gray like you. I'm not 30. I'm already 30. This will be I'm entering my mid 30s. I'm excited to go a little salt and pepper like you, John. I aspire to have that look. I'm not going to call you sexy on a podcast, but I did just do that.
Thank you so much.
You are 3 years younger than me. I don't know if I'd call 32 or 33.
33.
Yeah, it's mid-year. I'll call that mid.
I'll be 30. I'll be 34 next time around. I just turned 33.
It's mid.
Jeff,
so you're 1 year younger than me. Shit. Sorry, never mind.
we
This is hoops talk, baby.
I know. Before we get to that, we always say just a fun gimmicky thing we do. Season 9, episode 16. So we'll say famous number 16. Famous number 16. Who comes to you?
Bobby Clark.
Oh, second. Yeah, Johnny said Bobby Clark.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jeff is a Pucks guy at heart.
Really?
Yeah, Jeffy Pucks. Yeah, in my youth and in my first part of my career, I was a Pucksman, as they say.
Oh,
No,
nice.
I've never heard anybody say that before. I doubt that's a term that anybody's ever said.
So Jeff has had 2 different stints of covering the Flyers for the Daily News and at the Inquirer, where he was doing that briefly before. He is now basically kind of taking taking the baton here from Mike Jensen. I know he's already doing a great job with that. Jeff, thoughts on the Big Five Classic format so far? We were talking about this earlier. I love the chaos. I think they needed to do something to shake it up. You and I have been in how many press conferences where people it's like a half-filled Palestra. It's like a 20-point margin of victory for whoever's winning. And people ask the same cliche questions. I think things have kind of gotten stale. I'm loving this so far. I mean, I think it's bizarre that you're going to see Villanova and Drexel in a 5th place game, but I kind of like it. What are your thoughts on how it's going so far?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about like what we saw last year in that doubleheader at the Palestra, right? Like there was Penn and St. Joe's and Temple LaSalle in I think less than half-filled Palestra. So fast forward a year from now, and what we had last night was validation that I think this was the right stepping stone, like the right move to for what's next in the Big Five, whether it lasts or not, because there's no deal signed for next year. It's just, we'll see how it goes. But last night, being at the Pavilion for Villanova St. Joe's, having the Hawks win for the first time in that building since 2004, snapping an 11-game streak, and then finishing up at that press conference, I'm trying to start writing my St. Joe's takeaway, and I can't get away from my laptop because Temple and LaSalle are just locked in a friggin' Big Five thriller. I mean, Brickus and it's just incredible stuff. So I think having that chaos last night and sort of like, they got lucky, obviously, that it turned into 2 semifinals, right? Because if Penn beats Villanova, if Villanova beat Penn in their first matchup, last night's Penn St. Joe's matchup doesn't mean anything, right? St. Joe's can win the game and Villanova wins the tiebreaker and goes to the championship. So they got a little bit lucky that last night's stakes were what they were, but because that's the way the format was, there was always that possibility.
What are your takeaways from last night's St. Joe's win? I mean, they lose to Texas A&M Commerce, and then they bounce back to the in the sense that they almost beat Kentucky. Then last night was obviously huge from them. They're starting to look a lot like their fans and their coaches and the players obviously hope they would look like. This is a really talented roster. They were never really, I mean, once they got going last night, that they were in pretty firm control of that game. And I know Kyle Neptune had said, "Oh, we're disappointed in our defense." But what are your takeaways from that team after seeing them last night?
Yes, it's my second time seeing them this year. I saw them in their win over Penn, and parts of that game that looked like they were going to win by 30 against Penn. Penn got it tight because no one wins Big Five games by 30. But I wrote going into that game how both of the teams, St. Joe's and Villanova, each had suffered what their fan bases would call a loss that was worthy of their coach being fired. Right? How many? I'm sure you're not trolling St. Joe's message boards and commenters, but after their,
I don't know that for sure. I mean,
after that A&M Commerce loss, I mean, people were calling for Billy's head. After Villanova lost to Penn, when you follow up Jay Wright's tenure and then you go 17-17 in your first year and you lose to Penn in the first Big Five game of the next year. Yeah, I mean, these things start getting said, but St. Joe's wasn't going to be defined by a 40-minute sample size where they shot, I think, like 6 for 30 from beyond the arc against Texas A&M Commerce. You shoot 6 for 30 against a high school basketball team and you're going to lose, right? Like, you take 30 shots from beyond the arc and 6 of them go in. It's almost mathematically impossible to make up the difference, and they almost did it, right? Like, this is a team that going into last night's game, you probably could have polled most St. Joe's fans and said they were pretty average and they were pretty disappointing because of that A&M Commerce loss, and that's based off of how they view Billy's tenure and all that stuff. But they were 2 missed layups in that Commerce game, and that Chris Esendoko missed free throw and 1 defensive stop away from being 6-0 going into last night. And we'd be talking about a team who's getting top 25 votes. So it's like way early in the season. We do this overreaction of based on really small sample sizes and things that are sort of out of coach's control, right? Like, there's only so much you can do through 6 games. Like, so Billy was, talking to Billy leading into the game, he's like, I'm all focused on what our trajectory is. And while that, on a data chart is a big blip to the bottom, losing to Commerce, they've been playing good basketball, sharing the ball well. They just weren't shooting well. And how did when you're this early in a season, how do the sample sizes start to even up? You shoot 14 for 27 from deep, and now the math is like where it's kind of supposed to be. Sorry to go. I'm not even a statistical major or anything. I don't even know math that well, but like that's kind of what happened, right? Like you shoot the way they shot last night, and you're going to beat anybody. The opposite of that is shoot the way you shot against Commerce, and you're going to lose to everybody. But all of that is to say, and I'm rambling now, they have 3 of the best guards in the Atlantic 10. And maybe not pound for pound, 1 for 1. I mean, their 3 guards are better than probably anybody's 3 guards in the Atlantic 10. And in that league, as you well know, you have 3 guys who can fill it up like that. You're going to win a ton of A10 games. And I think it's almost like, regardless of what St. Joe's fans think about Billy Lang and his coaching ability, talent alone, they're going to win so many Atlantic 10 games. And Reynolds is just a killer, just an elite scorer.
Yeah. I would imagine both teams are probably, Temple and St. Joe's, might be a little emotionally and physically spent from last night, especially Temple playing 3 overtimes. Temple's shorthanded without Jaleel White. We were talking about that a little bit earlier on the pod. He's going to be out for multiple games, multiple weeks. That's a loss for them because of his defensive versatility, his ability to score a little bit about the rim, and he's been their best rebounder. And even with him, St. Joe's has the better roster right now. I think we can all agree that Adam Fisher is a couple players away from where he really wants this team in the future. In your mind, what does Temple have to do to pull off an upset on Saturday?
This is going to sound dumb, but it's just like hope that St. Joe's shoots poorly, and because they're gonna get shots, right? Like, and it's like it's such a stupid and like not very practical way to look at it. Like, oh, we could defend better. We got to run them off the 3-point line. Well, those guys can get to the rim too. Like, there's like, you just gotta hope they have a bad shooting night, because I think they're like, just based on talent alone, those three guys are going to get good. They're going to get shots. So yeah, they got to play hard defense. They obviously have to rebound. It's like all about doing all of those little things to make up what is probably a bit of a talent gap in the guard position. Now mentioned being tired and whatnot. I mean, if Kreist isn't able to suit up, if Winborn remains out, they've got basically a 7-player rotation, right? And it's effectively a 6-player rotation. Casper played 12 minutes off the bench last night. Finkley was in a bit of foul trouble, but they're going 3-4 guards and playing, Cam Brown played 38 minutes. Lynn Greer played 35. Reynolds played 35. They are a deep team, but right now with these people, with these players missing action, they're not that deep. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be fascinating. Obviously you'd give St. Joe's the edge here based on roster and talent, but you would give you'd give Villanova a roster and talent advantage over Penn, and you'd give them that over St. Joe's, and that's why they play the games.
Yeah,
as my dad would say.
That's good. It's good dad language there. You wrote about this a little bit last night too. Like, St. Joe's played a lot of zone, and I think Billy Lang said they did it out of necessity because of because they were without Kreist and because they were without Christian Winborn, but it worked. I don't know if Billy talked about this more. Like, would you expect them to play a little bit more of it Saturday against a Temple team that did not shoot well? It's not like it's not like they were shooting the cover off the ball before that last night. They were just particularly bad last night and were able to still win. At one point, I think they were 1 of 20 from 3. It was really, really bad. Would you expect them to kind of just say, hey, this worked for us? Granted, it's a different roster, a different team, but is it something that they feel they might stick with a little bit for the time being until they get back to a full lineup?
I mean, I think that they can look at the way Temple's been shooting the ball and decide, yeah, we're going to play this 3-2 zone until they start beating us. Because I watched, I was with you at the Temple Drexel game when I don't know how many missed threes Heiser Miller had, but there was a lot of them. If Piccarelli gets going, obviously he can get it going. But I don't see any reason why St. Joe's wouldn't play a lot of the zone, make Temple shoot them out of it if they can even get off the good looks. But as Billy said yesterday, they played the zone out of desperation. He decided that, maybe he thinks this differently, but he decided that against Villanova, the only way they were going to win the game is if they saved their energy for offense and just kind of sat back in a zone against a team who had struggled against zones earlier in the season. The reason why Penn beat Villanova is because Penn went zone and Villanova couldn't beat it. Villanova struggled a little bit at times against Lemoyne, even with their zone. You would know better than me, having seen more Temple than I have this year. Have they been zoned? I mean, Drexel zoned them a little bit in the Temple game, right? In the Temple Drexel game.
Columbia did.
Yeah,
right?
they've had a hard time moving the ball against the zone too. Like, not even just shooting, moving the ball.
Yeah, that was Villanova's problem yesterday against St. Joe's zone. So I'm sure they're, St. Joe, Billy and his staff are watching film today, being like, "Yep, that's what we're going to do again on Saturday."
Yeah. Again, you've seen what you just saw him against Drexel, right? Like, any early thoughts so far in the Adam Fisher era between again, I think we can agree that they're not an NCAA tournament team this year, barring any sort of really surprising developments. But what do you think so far from what you've seen just on the floor, what he's done with recruiting so far, and just the start that he's off to?
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, I mentioned to you when we were at the Drexel game, I was super impressed with Zion Stanford. I saw him play, I think, 2 high school games last year, and was like, okay, yeah, they got a guy who might develop into a player, and he's already a player, which is a good development for them. They're showing you right now that they're going to be in a lot of games, right? They've got players who are tough and who can make shots when necessary. They can get stops when they need to. There's like a couple interesting players on their team. I like having a guy like Picarelli, he can get going in a game. They can win some games. Like high volume shooters like Miller, you win some games with those guys. Obviously, if they're not an NCAA tournament team, they're not winning the American. It would be an incredible feat if they did. But certainly not a team that's going to get blown out in a lot of games. You can see that already with the results this year. Probably should have beat Ole Miss. You were at that game, and you might agree. I mean, a narrow loss. Like we're like a couple possessions away from them being 6-0 right now. It's like they're obviously there's something there. If they're not terrible, they're not going to be great. But if you expect them to go, win only 4 games or so in the American, it doesn't seem like that's going to pan out that way.
Jeff, tell us about a couple more questions here for you, and we really appreciate your time. Tell us a little bit more about what your role is going to be like at the Inquirer. Obviously, we all have a ton of respect for Mike Jensen, who's going to be retiring and moving on and working on a book. And you and I know Mike really well. Tell us about what it's going to be like being kind of like a general assignment reporter, features guy, obviously covering a lot of college hoops. But how exciting is this for you right now?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's like if you could give me at this stage of my what I want to do in life and my career, this is like up there in terms of dream jobs. I could do this job until it's time for me to retire in 30 something years. If this kind of job still exists, I'd be happy to do that. So there's no replacing Mike. There's no such thing as replacing Mike Jensen. I'm not trying to. But my job is going to be the Inquirer's college sports guy. That means finding cool features to write. It means writing analysis off of our college basketball teams. Obviously, that means for us. That means a good chunk of my time will be spent with Villanova. They are a subscription driver for us. They have a big fan base, but that's also in part because some of the other teams haven't been that great. So it looks like we might have a good St. Joe's year. Penn's always in the mix in the Ivy. A couple of our women's teams are good. Adam Fisher's tenor is starting out good. Like there's, Drexel's going to compete in the CAA. It's like, it's going to be a busy year, and college sports in general right now, as you guys know better than most, is a fascinating topic to be covering. I'm not like, I don't know that I 3 years ago expected to be a college sports writer covering the changing landscape like this. This job used to be a little more cut and dry than it was now. And now it's, there's a lot more to it. There's a lot like collectives and payments and, who knows if the SEC is in the NCAA in 2 years. Like this world is like a crazy world. And that's actually, it's exciting. Maybe a couple of years ago, if I was entering a job like this, maybe a couple of years into it, you kind of get bored. And now it seems like college sports will be anything but boring for the foreseeable future. So, it's exciting to be stepping into a role like this during this time.
Jeff, and to close things out, obviously we've known each other a long time. You're a Temple graduate. You got your start at Temple. Tell people just about like your interest in writing, what your time was like at Temple. We've known each other for a long time. You've known Kyle for a long time. You're a fun person to be around. You like long walks on the beach with Lisa and Frankie.
Long walks in South Philly right now. So
yeah. But for Temple fans who are listening, tell us about like your time at Temple. What got you interested in this career path?
Yeah, what got me interested in sports writing is I was a terrible student in anything else. I had very limited interest in anything outside of writing. And it's why it wasn't that I was like a great writer in high school or anything like that. Or I'm not saying that I'm a great writer now. Just like I didn't really have many interests in school. I was a bad high school student. I wanted to work in sports, but didn't want to do like business stuff. I'm not that interested in business and math and finance. So the one thing I was decent at in school was I always did well in writing and English. So how did you combine those two things? It's you write about sports. So it's pretty simple that way. And Temple wasn't my first choice. I started my college career at Arizona State. Didn't really go to class that much, missed the East Coast. Ended up back at Temple. Found my soulmate in John DiCarlo, and no, I had a fantastic time at Temple. It afforded me great experiences. The Temple news was great. Being in a city like Philadelphia, I interned at WIP and eventually found an internship at the Daily News. And things just kind of worked out that way. And because the journalism and newspaper industry is what it is. I've been in and out of it now for multiple years, working in restaurants, driving for Uber, delivering pizza. I mean, I've done everything. Everything. Yeah. I've been a, career jack of all trades person. And, I kind of like, it's like, I think that's, and it's I've been that way in journalism too. Like I've covered the protests of 2020 and coronavirus. And,
I forgot about that.
Just like everything. I mean, I was an education reporter. And all of these things I think have made me like a better, like it sounds stupid, but like a better person and like a better reporter because of all these experiences that I've had. So it's been fun. It's been a very interesting, now 10 or 8 years post college graduation, and I wouldn't have it any other way, but now it's, I'm a married man, and now I think I'm in a role where I could stay for a while. But as I've learned many times in this industry, things could change tomorrow. So I'm still in that take it day by day kind of mentality.
Stacking days. Your wife
Stacking
is
days,
incredible,
brother.
Your wedding was just lovely. I think didn't we talk about this? Didn't I wrongfully accuse you of talking in my advanced sports reporting class? I looked up you and said something. You gave me this look like, bro, I'm not talking. Why are you looking at me?
Yeah, probably something like that. For a second, I thought you were talking about that time that I came to speak to your class at St. Joe's and
you grabbed
gave
one
you
of
a
my
heart. Yeah, so this is a funny story. So Johnny's like, I figured any good teacher, right, is going to print out more copies for a test than they need. So I'm about to speak to Johnny's sports writing class at St. Joe's, and they're taking their AP style quiz. And I don't know, maybe let's say there's 15 kids in the class. This dummy prints out 15 copies of the quiz. Anything could happen. You could spill coffee on one, anything. So I just like grab one and start filling out the answers. And Johnny looks at me. He like looks, what are you doing? He's like, oh my God, I only printed out the perfect number. Oh my God. And as you guys know, Johnny gets like frantic when things aren't going. So he's spiraling. What am I going to do? Like, what's going to happen? So, yeah. Well, we're telling. It's a podcast now. We're telling stories here. We're just pro wrestling. So I'm just like a guy who's like, I got to fix this for it. I got to make it right. So I grab one of the copies that I didn't write on and like start running around the hallway where the classroom was, and behind like a weird locked door, I found a copy machine, made copies, and saved the day.
That was a pivotal moment in our friendship.
In fairness, you haven't updated that test in 13 years, so you could have just used the previous version.
I've updated
That's
it.
why I started filling it out, because I was like, this is the same one I took 4 years ago. Like, I'm definitely why would I not just reprise my role as student?
Jeff, you know what Declan teases me about? Like, was I teaching the Frank Sinatra Has a Cold story in the advanced class? And so Declan walks around every once in a while and he goes, real quick, who am I? And he starts singing a Sinatra song and then he sneezes.
John DiCarlo has a cold.
Yes. Jeff, I love you, buddy. Thanks so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys. See ya.
All right, big thank you to Jeff Neiburg from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Again, Temple and St. Joe's will square off Saturday night, 7:30 p.m. at the Wells Fargo Center for the inaugural Big Five Classic Championship. It's been an eventful week for the Temple football program, and not in a good way necessarily, although I can't say we were totally surprised by this. Maybe a little bit.
A little surprised.
E.J. Warner in the transfer portal. Where does Temple go from here? Quarterback. Lots to talk about. We've got some, again, if you're a Temple football fan, we're going to have some recruiting updates for you about a lot of weekend visitors coming in. If you're an outlasted.com subscriber, we'll have the latest information for you there in terms of who's visiting. Are we surprised with the EJ news? We were kind of obviously talking about this back and forth in that press conference on Friday. Leading up to it, he kept making references to, next year, looking forward to getting back with the guys. And then literally as he's getting up to leave, Ryan Muir wanted to get that question. He said, are you going to be back next year or next season? He said, please don't ask me that. Just focus on the seniors. I could have gone either way with it because I think EJ is just he's just a different type of guy where he is not a self-promoter, not a name dropper for being Kurt Warner's son. So I wouldn't have been, Kyle and I think we're talking about this offline, just saying like, I wouldn't be totally surprised if he comes back for another year and then maybe grad transfer somewhere, but obviously did not waste a whole lot of time and he's leaving. What do you guys think? Obviously huge loss for the program and the offense in general. But did this kind of catch you? We knew it was a possibility, but did it surprise you, or were we expecting this?
Yeah, I think it surprised me a little bit just because of what you said. I mean, I think in the 2 years of EJ Warner being in my life, I wouldn't have categorized him as somebody that like talked just for the sake of talking. So when he kind of said the things of like, oh yeah, we have to focus on getting better next year, we got to work on this, I kind of thought like, well, he didn't need to say things like that. So that kind of leads me to believe that he is coming back. Obviously something changed. If you had asked me last like Tuesday, is he coming back, I would have said no. But then the post-game press conference made me think that maybe he is coming back. But no, in a silo, it surprised me, but in a bigger picture, like, no, that seemed inevitable.
To be honest, I was the opposite. When we were sitting there in the post-game press conference and I'm doing my little video, and Stan said something, somebody had asked him about looking at roster adjustments in the offseason. He's like, we've already had some of these conversations because the window is so tight. And then when EJ said, please don't ask me about that, my brain just immediately went, he's gone.
I don't think he had that conversation with EJ.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't think that was
so?
I don't think that was a, hey, we know this is your last game thing. I mean, Stan also had quotes about like, I'm so excited about his future. Like, we think that he's a hell of a player and like he has a good ceiling here. Like, I think that was more about like the Jordan McGee's, the Evan Rigby's, the Victor Stoffels, like things like that, where they could come back for a 6th year.
I guess I just wasn't thinking about that
Maybe.
in the moment. Because when he said, when he looked Rymir dead in the face and like his expression changed and he was like, please don't ask me about that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just something about like, maybe it was the air in the room. Maybe it was how he said goodbye to Rich. I don't know what it was, but it was like, it was weird to me.
Very
Like it
very
was
dramatic. Maybe it was the way he said goodbye to Rich.
I don't know. Like it was just, me being the observant guy that I was trying to be. I was like, this feels weird.
In the background.
Maybe it was the sunset as he was walking off, but no, it was just like, it genuinely was just a weird like vibe that I got, that I was like, I don't know that we're going to see him again.
I'll say this, I hope maybe you're right, because otherwise, like, there's a moment I point back to a lot, when you guys were just wee lads and still figuring out your life. Rod Carey in his last year literally had a quote on signing day where he said, because like Arnold Ebiketie had left, he went to Penn State, all this stuff. He said, it's Chris Banks' turn. It's Chris Banks' turn to take an opportunity. It's his time. And he entered the portal 12 hours later. Yeah. So like, and that was kind of like when you pinpoint, you go, that was the end of the Rod Carey era. Like, we didn't know it yet, but that was the end of the Rod Carey era.
Yeah.
You hope you don't point back to Stan hyping up EJ Warner and then him entering the portal 12 hours later as the end of the Stan Drayton era.
For me, I don't think I was surprised. I think it was just you referenced like the way that the room felt when he answered that question, and I think it had something to do with the fact that like I think he felt like he got out of the interview without having to directly answer that question, but the way that he had to sit back down, Rymir was able to get that question kind of not caught off guard, but like I don't know. I think there was just something like he was like, oh no, I thought I got out of having to answer it. And then just kind of like said the truth, like not the truth, but like tried to weave his way around it without saying anything at all. But it kind of really said a lot.
And the answer to this next question is going to be an incomplete, but where does Temple go from here at quarterback? Because again, we go back. This is becoming the Rod Carey hour, where I do like that quote that Kyle points out, where you talk about football being a developmental sport, and Rod's like, players are allowed to get better. What we saw of Forrest Brock,
the best thing Rod Carey ever gave to this.
Yeah. Yes. Forrest Brock did not look ready, did not look good against SMU. Granted, nothing was really going well or right around him, to be fair to him. Players are allowed to get better. He could go out and have a good spring. Tyler Douglas wasn't, obviously not showing them enough in practice to be ready for that point. But again, Tyler Douglas, true freshman, allowed to get better. And we don't know where these guys' heads are at right now. Chris Dietrich, they're one of their earliest. Was he their first commit from the 2024 class?
I think so, by like a couple hours or something. Like I think they got a couple kids from that class.
Now he decommitted today. That's not to say that he was going to be ready to come in and play as a true freshman, but as of now, you've got Forrest Brock, you've got Tyler Douglas. I mean, I'd have to think between now and December 20th, right? Is early signing is when it starts?
20th, yes.
Yeah, I have it right here in the script. I'm an idiot.
It's okay.
So sleepy. So
we're all learning. It's only our 140th episode. Actually, it might be like our 400th episode.
I mean, I'd be shocked at this point if now they're not bringing in a a JUCO quarterback or a transfer. And for fans out there, I hate to be the wet blanket here. Again, as we talk about EJ Warner heading into the portal, he is entering a very, very, very crowded and deep and talented transfer portal at quarterback. Temple's not going to get, not that you'd expect any of the bigger names. I think it's going to be an FCS guy, and even the FCS guys that are good are going to transfer up. I mean, it's got to be JUCO depth at this point, Kyle.
I think you need two guys. I think ideally, is that two JUCO guys or is that a portal guy? I think in an ideal world, you bring in a portal guy, whether that's, and this is not source, this is me just throwing names to the wall. Is that an Evan Simon who started for Rutgers against Iowa? Is that a Cole Snyder, also a former Rutgers guy that's been like pretty good at Buffalo? I think in a normal transfer year, those guys might actually go higher. Like Cole Snyder might go to a higher level in a normal year.
Yeah.
But there's so many quarterbacks in the portal this year, and that I can't close my eyes and see like an okay to good MAC quarterback all of a sudden playing for Virginia Tech, right? Like I think Temple might be in the picture with some of those guys. And then I think maybe you bring like a prep school guy to kind of fill that role of Chris Dietrich or what, because as of right now, Forrest Brock and Tyler Douglas is a recipe for just like another developmental season. I think, and not to kind of hint to our own recruiting coverage, I think with the type of guys that they're targeting in this early signing period, I think Stan might be the most aware that they can't go 3-9 again next year and expect to still have their jobs. Like he's literally coaching for his job.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, the early signing period starts on December 20th. Temple now has 8 verbal commitments after Chris Dietrich decommitted today.
The one thing I'll say real quick is technically the portal doesn't open till Monday, right? Like you get all these guys that are declaring, like either if they're grad transfers, they can enter now, or if they're like FCS guys, or it might even be lower. But most things are going to happen next week. That's why, like, even though it's an official visit weekend this weekend, you're not going to be like, well, here's UConn's quarterback and Virginia Tech's running back and all this stuff. It's going to still be like high school JUCO kids that they have to target at first. But I don't think that will be their overall recruiting strategy. Yeah.
So again, good time to subscribe now. We understand if you're down on the football program. We get it. We're here for you. Or as they would say in Succession, we here.
We here
for you.
I will say I hate like most of this stuff with like transfer portal, NIL, and like people leaving. That being said, this like time of year is my favorite time of year for coverage because it's always like every week. It's like, who's coming in this weekend? What are you doing this? Like we got these guys, we got these names. This person committed on Monday. So subscribe to outlasted.com, promo code Dirty D.
Meg, you're gonna have to trim the trees tonight.
I went fake tree. I went fake tree 2 years ago. Best decision I've ever made.
Fake trees are underrated.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever put up a real tree
Ever?
in my adult life. We had a couple years where we did a real tree growing up as kids. One year it fell over, which caused my dad to just release a tirade of expletives. And then Kyle, you know, God bless my father, miss him every day. You know how my dad used to try to concoct things, and he actually
he created an electrical grid in my room.
Yeah.
What?
There was one outlet in my room, and I come home one day, and all of a sudden there's 4 extension cords laid out in like grid system, giving me like 8 different outlets. He had just been in my room.
Yeah.
Didn't ask me or anything. Just went in there, lifted beds, laid out, like literally took 2 outlets and turned it into 8. Because he just created this not up to code fire hazard electrical grid.
Yeah. When
awesome.
When Kyle and I lived together for a year in South Philly, I think I came home, right? And you were like,
I think I was like, it's not a big deal. I was like, your dad definitely like went through my stuff.
Which prompted a call. I was like, I love you, but I can't remember how many times I said in my life, I love you, but like you can't. Kyle's a grown man. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just nervous. All right. Well, what are you guys doing this weekend? Like, it just changed the subject. And yes, anyway, we had a real tree at one point and it fell and you could hear the crash. And then my dad like tied it with one of those little thin wires to a little spoke on like this little like railing between the kitchen and the family room. Anyway, artificial tree. Kyle's going to be interrupted decorating for Christmas.
Sorry, decorate. It's been up for, it may put it up the Saturday before Thanksgiving. It's been up for like a week and a half. I completely against I protested and I lose a lot of those protests in the gal's house.
Exterior illumination wise, we're in good shape. We got to get the trees up prior to.
Did you say exterior illumination?
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
On the outside, I have no exterior illumination.
What's that?
I have no exterior illumination up, but the inside is all decorated.
There we go. There we go. Again, back to the point of this podcast here. Again, stay locked down on Owl Scoop. We'll have a lot of recruiting news coming up for you. Let's get to the mailbag here to close things out. A lot of things on a lot of people's minds here. First question here from Off the Hook 3 on Twitter is the handle. If Matt Rule got EJ Warner to go to Nebraska, would Temple fans be mad? Given the climate change in college football and how Temple has performed recently, are they in a better or worse spot than when they got kicked out of the Big East? So it's the first one. If Matt Rule got EJ to go to Nebraska, would Temple fans be mad? It's not happening. I don't think EJ Warner is going to end up at Nebraska.
I keep hearing people talk about Nebraska and they talk about JMU because he followed Kirk Cignetti 2 years ago, and people don't understand how Twitter follows work. But like, first of all, Kirk Cignetti's now going to Indiana. But Nebraska, the other part is Kurt Warner's kid left Nebraska. Like, they transferred out of Nebraska. It's not like they like hold Nebraska as this like great moment in their life of like all this. Like, Cade Warner left and the entire coaching staff's gone. But the bigger picture of like, I wouldn't be like, if I was a Temple fan, I wouldn't be mad that Matt Rule took EJ or got EJ Warner, because I don't think this was a situation where EJ Warner got tampered with or anything. I think he just decided he wanted to leave.
Yeah, no.
So.
That second part, given the climate of college football and how Temple's performed recently, are they in better or worse spot than when they got kicked out of the Big East? They're still, look, we talked about how uncertain, like Jeff just said now, like, I mean, it's a time of chaos. You know, people wonder if the SEC is going to break away from the NCAA. We don't know what's in store for the future. Just having covered that era of Temple football, I'd say, again, is the state of Temple football great right now? No, they've had back-to-back 3-9 seasons. They are like, they're going to lose some guys in the portal. The Rod Carey era hurt them. You can point to like the chain reaction of events that got them here, but I still think they're in a slightly better spot. I mean, the program was truly in the toilet back then. The facilities were terrible. The practice facility was not what it was. The program, as I've said a million times, was hanging on by a thread, was almost dropped. It passed by one vote when it went to a vote by the Board of Trustees. When they were kicked out of the Big East, they were recruiting a ton of JUCO guys for a different reason, where Bobby Wallace was saying, I have to go recruit junior college guys because I can't look a high school student athlete in the face and tell them that we're going to have a program 4 years from now. Stan Drayton isn't in that position. He's not in a great spot right now, but he can sell playing time. You can come in right away. I still think they're in a better spot. Again, I'm not trying to gaslight fans and say, oh, everything's perfect, everything's great. Still think they're in a better spot. Any dissenting opinions on that or no?
No, I agree.
Thank you, John.
You were the only one covering Temple football at that time.
Yeah.
So I will defer to you.
Yeah. Next question here also comes from Twitter. The Twitter handle is pseely99. Couple questions here. The college football world has gone through many changes over the last few years with the introduction of NIL, conference realignment, etc. These changes plus the prior coaches have had impacts. What does Temple plan to do to compete in the American Athletic Conference in football? They have to hit on a lot of these guys that they're bringing in this weekend and in the future days leading up to signing day, because again, we talked about it earlier. This isn't a steady build. I mean, I don't think Stan Drayton and the staff have a whole lot of equity right now. It's not like they went, go 3-9 last year. If they were 6-6, 7-5 after last week and say, hey, there's a steady progression there. Again, even if they were, they'd still be losing guys in the portal. Even if they went 10-2 this year and we're playing for a conference championship this weekend, I can almost guarantee you that EJ Warner's name would be in the portal the next day. I still think they'd be losing him. Right. There might be a little bit more goodwill, but they have to hit on these recruits. They have to, yes, and they have to. And Declan, tip of the cap to you for a great job. You and Sam O'Neill for a job well done, and covering the athletic department for the Temple News. If you haven't checked out that story, and it's no secret that Temple is way behind in the NIL space, especially for football. So they need growth and progress there. They have to hit on a lot of guys in this upcoming class in terms of getting immediate help. I think that they have some younger players that they could build around. Obviously, it would be a huge boon to them if Jordan McGee decides to come back. We talked about that a little bit last week. I mean, I don't think as bad as things were this year. Stan Drayton is not Rod Carey. It's not, total
He loses the
chaos.
locker
But
room. Yeah.
no, I don't think he's lost the locker room. I'm not saying that these guys are happy about losing, but they have to win with what they have heading into next season. I know that's not a grand answer for you there, but I don't know. Any other additional thoughts on this one?
I mean, nothing outside of like fundraising really will help as well. Because, you mentioned my article, and thank you so much for that. That was very kind of you.
You're welcome.
But, we had talked about what are the goals for Temple as an athletic program. And Arthur Johnson was saying, like, we need to compete within our conference. And it's tough because they don't have the fundraising of a school like Charlotte, even. Like, they don't have the fundraising to compete with, going out and getting recruits. And at the end of the day, if you're getting a scholarship to a school, and that's great and all, but if you're getting a deal on the other end of that you can help your family, because nothing's guaranteed even the next year, like, there's only so much you can do to compete with a school that's offering money on top of the scholarship that you're also offering. So it's tough because, you mentioned you got to hit on the recruits that you're getting, but you're not going to get these high level recruits if they're getting better deals elsewhere. So a big part of it is competing. A big part of it is fundraising, not just the tough fun, but the Owl Club and the athletic department itself. So there's a whole host of things that you can go read about.
Yeah. I'll say, well, real quick about the NIL stuff. I'll say the difference between Temple and like a UTSA or even like a UNT, USF, none of these schools have a fan base. None of them. I just watched an entire conference slate of Temple playing in front of 1,800
Empty
people.
seats. Yeah.
Like, I don't care that USF announced 3,000 people. There were 450 people there.
Mhm.
Like, period. The difference is they have NIL to kind of help get these kids in. Like, UTSA was able to keep Frank Harris because they raised $300,000 to keep him or whatever it was. So either you figure out NIL or you become Transfer U, where you just take kids that didn't work out other places, have them use their one-time waiver to come to Temple. I don't think that's long-term sustainable, but some schools are going to try to do that. Charlotte's trying to do that. Like, they're just becoming Transfer U. Let me take 70 transfers and hope this works out. And then even if they're good, they probably can't leave because they already used their waiver. Or you become a glorified junior college where you get good at playing guys for 1-2 years and having them leave. I think obviously the first one is more sustainable and is more palatable to Temple fans, but I guess there's 3 different ways you could be successful, because I think the traditional way of let me get a high school kid, build him up, and by the time he's a junior, senior, he's great, doesn't work anymore because he'll leave at the first sniff of a better opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Second part of the question here: when Stan Drayton and his staff are recruiting, how do or should they sell Temple football? How do we make this an attractive destination? I think it's simple. You see, there's playing time here. You can play right away, and they're not lying.
And they could point to it too. I mean, there were so many freshmen that, not even like week 1, but like week 2, week 3, like Luke Watson jumps to mind, was playing like almost the whole season as a freshman.
Yeah.
Like,
And in a weird way, Stan has said that, and B, I don't know that they would be as vocal about this, but I wouldn't be totally shocked if when they're out on the recruiting trail that they don't casually mention, like, yeah, hey, like in a world of that has now been overcome by the transfer portal, like there are other programs that are coming to pluck our guys. We'll see where you are in a couple of years, but I think some coaches have been vocal about that and saying, like, hey, we want to keep you here all 4 years. We want to develop you as the whole man, the whole person, or whatever. But there again, any other day you want to keep EJ Warner, but there might be someone out there saying, like, well, he was able to go there and succeed, and maybe he'll end up. I don't know where EJ Warner ends up. That's another conversation, but you sell playing time, you sell opportunity. I think it's pretty simple. Next Twitter question here in the mailbag. The Twitter handle is Bailey Ward. Does the football department, marketing coaches, or recruiting coordinators need to add more staff to help with this crazy portal scene? No, they need to just, everybody's dealing with this. They need to just, they need to make smart decisions in the portal. I don't think it's about adding extra staff. Next question here. This is from the message board from the screen name Stapler01. It's a good handle. 2 questions. Assuming everyone with eligibility stays, what is your assessment of the offensive line next year? We'll handle that one first. As erratic as they were, again, we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks. I do think that you have someone to build around in Luke Watson. I do think that you have someone to build around in Kevin Terry. I think a guy like an Eric King will be key to them. He really get on the field and redshirt this year. Again, that's no cause for alarm, but had some decent offers during his recruitment. At one point, he had a Syracuse offer. At one point, he had a Rutgers offer before they moved on to like the next guy on their recruiting depth chart. But I still think they have some pieces to build around. You have to figure out, who your center is going to be. I would imagine that is either going to be either a better Bryce Tobin or a junior college player. I don't think it's totally barren. Victor Stoffel could come back, right, Kyle?
Yeah. So if a guy's like, if he comes back because he has that 6 year of eligibility, if Wisdom Corsi stays, gets like his 6 year, like things like that, like the right side of the line was fine-ish.
Yeah.
Like it was okay. So like I think, if you see Luke Watson kind of take that next step and you see an Eric King or even like Chris Smith starting to play towards the end, Diego Barajas ended up redshirting because he only played in 2 games and couldn't stay healthy. Like, do I think they need to add pieces? Yeah, absolutely. I think they're going to try to add 4 or 5 pieces in the next 6 weeks, but I think there's also enough encouragement, I guess, from like traditionally, if you started left tackle as a true freshman, your career arch or trajectory is pretty good. So I'd be surprised if that doesn't continue to follow that development.
Do you think EJ leaving, the second question here from Stapler 1, do you think EJ leaving or just the results of the last 2 years is likely to lead to any change in offensive philosophy? Decent question.
Yeah, it's not a bad question.
I mean, you got to adapt to the quarterback that comes in, right?
Yeah.
So whoever they end up getting, they're probably going to try and get the best player available.
Right.
You got to play to their strengths.
And you would hope the development of the offensive line leads to some changes, right?
Yeah.
They couldn't run the ball.
Yeah, and I don't think that Danny Langsdorff was a problem this year. Again, he's got a long way to go, but Tyler Douglas has probably a stronger arm than EJ Warner, might be a little bit more mobile than him. But again, EJ Warner did a lot more to contribute to this offense. But that's a good question. I don't know that, again, like Kyle said, you hope that the offensive line develops. You hope that you get a little bit more out of your running backs, but I don't know that it'll change too much if Danny Langsdorff is still around. Last couple questions.
Real quick, I think the offense is appealing to, like, if you're a grad transfer quarterback and you're like, I want to throw the ball 400 times next year, come on down to Temple.
They were a top 25 passing offense in the country.
A lot of that was out of necessity, but like that should be appealing to a guy that's just trying to get film. Like you're gonna get plenty of film, man.
Yeah, they're willing to trust you to throw the ball.
Right.
Yeah. 3 questions here to close us out from the screen name Temple Fan Al. For football, how much of a football roster overhaul do we need to go bowling next year?
Any of you guys seen Mean Girls?
I love Mean Girls.
The limit does not exist. Like I think this roster needs like a pretty massive overhaul, even from just like a depth perspective. Like I think they need to, what's the old like standard basketball cliche of like get old and stay old. Get old, because there was too much young depth out there this year.
Yeah. Question number 2, bottom line, why did EJ Warner leave? Due to our uncompetitiveness on the field or because of NIL? Again, standard disclaimer here. I have not had a one-on-one conversation with EJ Warner about this. I don't believe that it's because of NIL. I don't think that EJ is the type of kid who's out there who's chasing money. I don't think his family needs it, with his father being Kurt Warner. I think he just really, truly wants to play behind a better offensive line and test himself at a Power 5 program. Whether he ends up at a Power 5 program, again, we'll see. And that's no knock on EJ. We just have to see. Like we said earlier, he's entering a very, very, very crowded quarterback portal right there. And I think he got along very well with Danny Langsdorff. I think this is just like, I see what I can do. I want to test myself anywhere else. I don't think it's anything really beyond that.
It honestly wouldn't surprise me if he went like lateral move. And that's not a slight against him whatsoever. I think they might just be looking for a better situation, and it's better to be the quarterback of like a 10-2 Sun Belt team than it is a 3-9 Temple team, right? So like I think it's more of just get him into like a winning situation. Yeah.
Final question here. Basketball predictions for the St. Joe's game on Saturday is the last question here from Temple Fan now. Johnny, we'll start with you.
I don't think Temple is going to be able to pull it off. I think St. Joe's just has the better roster, and being shorthanded with likely being out with Jaleel White is going to hurt them significantly.
I mean, they'll definitely be out.
Definitely be out.
White is definitely going to be out for several games.
Will definitely be out. I'm going to say St. Joe's 76, Temple 62.
You.
Okay, cool. I didn't know if you were about to
I was
go.
at 62. That would be oof.
Yeah.
That would be bad, especially after we were talking about Jeff Neiburg talking about how St. Joe's felt like they didn't have the energy to play defense against Villanova. If Temple puts up 62, that would be.
Well, that was a big thing I was thinking of. And I mean, we saw it in, the game so far. Like Temple's defense has kept them in games. And I saw a lot of people on Twitter. I don't know how credible the people were. I don't remember, but saying like it'll be 20, 25 points. And like, I get that, but I also think Temple's defense keeps it closer than that. St. Joe's wins, but it's probably like 10 points. I think it'll be maybe give me a 80 to a 71. I think that ends up. I think Matteo Piccarelli gets hot. I think Steve Settle builds off of his game against LaSalle, and they come within 10, but it's still like a foul game till the end where it's close.
The one thing I think Temple kind of has going for it is there's two things that St. Joe's really bad at, and that's getting to the line and rebounding. And like Temple's good at both those things. So like maybe that matches up well. I think it's a little bit of a benefit. It wasn't at the time, but the fact that Heiser Miller, Jordan Riley, Sam Hoffman all fouled out like pretty early. Not that I'm saying playing 10 extra minutes would have killed them, but like fatigue should not be an issue with them. Like they played pretty much a regular game's worth. What's the storyline here that we're not talking about? Creased and Quante Berry, high school teammates and Providence teammates. They were literally Providence's entire signing class was Quante Berry and Creased that year.
Very good point.
Meeting up exactly where they always thought they would at the Wells Fargo Center. I'll say I think Temple loses this game. I think it's a situation where you see Temple like make like a run at the end to make it closer than it was, but St. Joe's was probably kind of always at arm's length. I'll say 76-69.
Yeah,
so 7-point loss.
I can see this being like a 72 to 60 game or something like that. I mean, if Creased plays, I think Temple was in. Again, you're already missing Jaleel White. You'll probably see a little bit more. Emmanuel Akpomo did not play last night. I think you'll see him a little bit more in this game just for size. I'm not predicting a big Emmanuel Akpomo game, but if Creased plays, he's a very, very talented guy. And I think that's spells more trouble for Temple. If you're trying to remain optimistic, then you say to yourself, if you're a Temple fan, maybe St. Joe's doesn't shoot the lights out 2 games in a row, just like, they don't shoot as well as they did against Nova, and maybe Temple doesn't shoot as poorly as they did against LaSalle, and things kind of even out, which I could see. But yeah, I still see them leaving about 10 or 12 points short in this game. So, but either way, not a bad thing in this point of Adam Fisher's tenure at Temple to be playing for a Big 5 championship.
Oh yeah.
And
the fact they're even in this game is huge.
Yeah. So, and it should be fun. So, and that's what matters most if we're having fun.
I mean, I've always said the real Big 5 classic championship title is the friends we made along the way. So
That was very corny.
that was the point, Johnny.
Oh boy.
Welcome to the bit.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you for joining us for another episode. A big thank you to Jeff Neiburg from the Philadelphia Inquirer for joining us as well. I hope you guys all had a great holiday, got to spend some time with family and friends. Hopefully we'll connect with some of you and see you down at the Wells Fargo Center. We'll talk to you next week.